Did you share the video? Did you share the video in that 1 minute?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Shit, you know what? I get so tied up in the tunes. I gotta stop. That's crazy. I'm practicing my dancing in the background so nobody sees
Yeah,
me.
you
But
know.
yeah, you know what? I hate to ask you, but you're gonna have to remind me before we go live each time,
No.
like
It
maybe
was a
two or
test.
three
It was
times.
a test. It was a test. It was a test. It
I
was
failed
like,
miserably. I failed
yeah, it's like,
miserably.
here we go. Is he gonna share the video today? But it's all good. You know, it is. We're happy to be here again every Tuesday with everybody to share all the amazing stuff. Love the t-shirt, brother. What
Thank you,
is
brother.
that t-shirt, man? Where can people buy
This
that
is
stylish
the
t-shirt?
official Bridger T-shirt. We don't have merch yet, but we're actually coming. We're getting it. You know what I'm finding, Ryan, is I trying to get some shirts, and like I'm calling around. I mean, local places, mind you, right? And I'm
Mhm.
saying, okay, I want like 100 of these and 150 of these, and they're like, yeah, we're having problems getting shirts these days, like actual like white cotton shirts, and
Mm.
like I'm thinking I can just go to Walmart and buy like three for $10 of the Joe Fresh or whatever it is, you know what I mean, or like real Canadian Superstore. So I'm not getting it. So maybe they're just trying to buy the cheap stuff, and cheap stuff's not coming in. I don't know, but
Say no to Gildon, baby. Those Gildon shirts are the worst t-shirts of life, man. I hate that. Like they're so boxy. We have to wear them and stuff like that because it is a cheaper option, right? And let's be honest,
yeah,
Gildon
maybe
is not
that's
going to
it.
be a
I
sponsor
mean,
of
the
our
ones
show,
we
so
got, the
they're
first round
nice.
we got, oh, they're beautiful. They're
They're nice,
comfortable. Um, I
and they
find them a
wash really
little.
well too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They wash
I
really
was gonna
well.
ask you this. It's funny because I'm putting my shirt on this morning. I'm like, how does Ryan get his t-shirts not wrinkly? How does he do that? And
I got a
I'm like, I'm gonna
steamer. I
ask
got
him.
a steamer, my man. I got a steamer. So I am a big fan of
Ah,
that. I don't like the iron board on stuff like that. Funny enough, I've asked for it for Christmas last year and it got delivered. So yes, I'm a big steamer guy, man. I like to, you look nice, you feel nice, you got that going,
yeah,
and I think,
buddy. Yeah,
it's
buddy.
awesome. But it doesn't look wrinkly, man. You look jacked in there, so it's looking
Oh,
good.
well, I'll take that, buddy. I'll take that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's why we went to the
Hey,
half screen, right?
yeah. um, hey, Audible today, buddy. Pulled an
Yes.
Audible. One of our first Audibles in a while, but we pulled an Audible today for everybody. We are actually switching it up. Normally, we would have a guest today. We're actually switching it up for videos today for a guest Thursday. Um, just happened to kind of happen last minute. So we kind of on the 50-yard line, and we're going, wait, blitz, let's blitz. And so here's the blitz, Ryan. Which video do you want to start with, brother?
Let's start with yours. Let's start with yours. Let's see
Okay.
what is it about. So go ahead and
I,
play
I
that bad
won't set
boy.
it up. Let's just throw it on, and we'll go from there.
All right, I'll throw it on right now.
It takes about 7 to 10 hours for you to become an acquaintance from a stranger. 30 hours to become casual friends, 50 hours to become friendships, and 300 plus hours to become best friends. If I ask you to put out Spotify and just tell me what your natural pick is of an artist, I guarantee you spent 300 hours listening to that person's music. Our brain cannot tell the difference between spending time with Drake in person or listening to him through his music. This is why content is king. The big brands know the goal is to get residency in your mind.
So he ends with residency in your mind. What are your thoughts there, Ryan?
My mouth is open because it just made me realize that. Okay, so there's a lot of things. Let's unpack this a little bit. So the one thing that jumps out of the mind is that our mind cannot distinguish Drake in person and audio and like listen to his album because it's so true. He's all over the place. You go on the radio. I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, they play a lot of Canadian artists. I think it's actually part of like the Canadian radio telecom, like their bill or whatever it is that if you're a radio station, you have to play a certain percentage of like Canadian artists. So it's just like you hear these artists and artists, not artists. And you're always kind of getting familiar with them. You wouldn't see it on like Much Music or MTV and stuff like that. So that's number one there. The second thing is when he said that 300 hours, and I think to myself, I think about all my best friends, you included, like how many people did I like? Yeah, it's true for them to become like my best friends, like 300 hours. And one of my really, really good one of my best friends in college, I could just think about it, the hours that we just spent together, and like, just that friendship that we built, had we just went to class alone, right? So you think about that, that's like 5 days. No, college is different. It's you have one class a week, right? So you got one class a week for, let's say, 36 weeks. That's 36 hours. If you just leave that alone, you're not going to become best friends with like people in your class. But then you're like, hey, you want to go study? That studying is like, hey, you want to go grab some food while we study? Hey, I like this. I like wrestling. Hey, you want to go see wrestling? And then you start texting and things like that. And I think the same thing with like girlfriends and boyfriends and like that. But yeah, man, 300 hours, that really, really stood out to me. And I took a note with that because I'm like, hey, if I really, really want to like launch my podcast, which by the way, I released an episode yesterday. But it's really cool. If I really want people to do that, just understand that there's that investment, that if they've heard me X amount of times. So it's like content, right? We're putting out the content. So it's like you put it out 3 ways. I think you mentioned that yesterday, Dan, about, putting out 3 places, and you're like, oh, you get that familiarity of like that person. Also, great video. I love it.
Yeah, what really what really kind of hit me was when I'm relating it back to sales.
Mm.
You have some like the psychology of sales. They often say, 7-8 touches
Yes.
for things to become familiar. So he said 7 to 8 hours for somebody to become familiar, 7 to 8 touches. Sometimes it's over 30 touches for somebody to become a really good client. And so I think about that and I say, okay, so if I touch somebody 7-8 times, we get a meeting, spend a couple of minutes in the meeting, and then touch again, 3 or 4 times, and say they become a customer at 20 touches. In the next 10 touches, you're spending so much more time with them on a similar challenge, on a similar issue, because you're trying to solve their problems. That's how they become raving fans. And that's how a customer becomes a client. Do you know what I mean? Like, I believe there's a difference between a customer and a client. Like somebody that's truly there for you. And my definition is, a customer will give you, freight here and there. A client will trust you to solve the big problems. And that comes with a whole bunch more freight, or at least the ability to get more freight, right? Like sometimes things are locked in. For me, that was very touching because I look at it and I say, going back to now the topic of this week, content is king. And I look at it and I say, if you see me everywhere with a consistent message, right? Kind of like a song. When you hear the song the first time and you like it, the song doesn't change a second time. You continue to hear that song with a consistent message and a message that drives value. You feel like you know me before we even have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And how powerful is that in our sales? I think it's uber powerful. I think if we don't think the people we solicit are paying attention to content, we're missing a big picture.
100%. And it works with referrals too, Dan, when you're talking about that. If I was to be like, hey, I need something, let's use your car cleaner, for example. If I need something to keep my car clean, I was like, hey, Dan, I got a black car right now. I got a Toyota Camry hybrid and I want to get this clean. You would have that, have that story, and I would go buy that. And it's based on the referral because it's true and tested, right? So I think like when it comes to content as well, you kind of put it out there. I am not like, people are always like saying like, don't spam me or like don't do these things. But I'm like, you know what? You got to do what other people won't do. Sometimes when I go on my YouTube channel, like when I go on my YouTube channel to kind of go through that rabbit hole, I'll see like certain like creators, like they'll upload like 15 clips. Like when I go through like that subscription page, there's like 15 clips of them like back to back to back. No one's ever going to be like, hey man, that's a lot. Like they need to stop, like somebody needs to be notified of this. It's like something's going to resonate with different people. And shout out to my wife because this was so funny that I think that sometimes our subconscious kind of gets into it. So I was kind of ribbing her a little bit on the weekend, talking to her about like fake gurus, like fake teachers. Like there's like people out there who like have never sold before that we've kind of seen in our industry, and they're like having like they're a big marketing trainer or something like that. Come out to my course. We've got 50 spots left or whatever it is. So she was kind of going off a tangent in the religious aspect of that, and then we went on YouTube after our discussion, and then there was actually a video there that said fake gurus. I should actually play played it today, but it had too much swearing in it. But it was like a guy saying, like, you get these people paying $12 for a blue check mark, and they're nothing but fake, and then he called them some BAMFers, and it was just kind of funny with that reliability, because when we're looking at those things, Dan, when you're talking to a customer, if a customer is looking to buy right now, what are they going to watch a video on? Are they going to watch a video on the news of something that's happening miles and miles away from them? Or are they going to watch a video on maybe a container shipment or ocean, something like that, that's relevant to their business? Everyone's always going to pick those kind of videos or those type of content, which relates back to them, and they're able to kind of go outward with it. And I love what you said there about your customers. There's a client, and then there's basically the customers, right? And you kind of look at, hey, who am I going to look at to be with me? We pulled an audible today. I look at it as like our football field. Who's going to be with me on the field? Is it going to be my customer, or is it going to be my client? And if you're on the bus, you're rocking with me. If you're not, then it is what it is. We'll drop you off at the next stop. There's always another bus that I'd like to see. But great video, Dan. I thought that was really, really cool.
Thanks, brother. What about yours, my man?
So I saw this last night, and I'll be real with you, it doesn't really have too much to do. Well, we can always relate anything back to like content itself. But I saw this last night, and Dan, I don't even follow this person. And I think it's just one of those things that it just really happened for a reason, because I was actually preparing my speech that I'm going to be delivering tomorrow night at Toastmasters. And one of the things that we work on is that, you work on the beginning and you work on the end, and then you kind of figure out the middle. And then I kind of start to realize, Dan, there really is a power of three. And when I look at myself, like I have 3 dogs. When I look at the things that I consume, I kind of consume them in 3. And not to be morbid here, but when somebody dies, there's kind of like an old verbiage or like old wives' tale that says, like death comes in 3s, so look out for anybody around there. So I want to play this clip and then kind of give a little bit of my thoughts on here for everybody as well.
Are you familiar with the power of 3?
No.
So if you
that's why I have you here.
Yeah. So the power of 3. Why do you think NBA, NHL, CNN, everything is in powers of 3? So when you do a presentation, people learn in 3s. So if you look at every major organization and major corporations across the world, it's all in 3s, because that's what people remember. So I had a great mentor that taught me how to speak.
Yeah.
So if you look at my teachings, all of my teachings is health, relationships, and business, how to overcome any hard time, perception, action, and will, and 3 traits that will allow you to do anything in life and make sure you move forward, which is discipline, gratitude, and purpose.
What are your thoughts, brother?
The power of 3 is incredible. Discipline, power, purpose. Let's take those 3 for example. Right? Discipline, power, and purpose. So discipline to get everything done, empowering yourself to be empowered, and driving everything towards your purpose. You're not going to go anywhere if you don't focus on those 3. He talks, Gary Vee talks about this, where he says, I have 3 things I talk about, and all I do is talk about them in 5 different ways. Yeah. There's 5 things, my double D5, that I consider that those are the only 5 things I'll talk about, but I'll talk about all of them in a completely different way. So I have 5. Maybe it should be 3. Now that I'm seeing that, I'm thinking, maybe 5 is too many. But it's, I think the power of 3. I mean, they often say like you preface the video with everything happens in 3s, right? Good and bad. It'd be interesting. I'm gonna have to follow up on that guy and see more about it. What was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I thought, well, it came at a right time. So when I kind of go into that mindset of me writing this speech for
Gotta love
tomorrow
the
night,
algorithm.
yeah, hey man, the algorithm knows, man. The algorithm knows, man, and it's crazy because you could just put some paper into text, and that kind of what happens there. But when I look at something like this, a power of 3s, and I think of myself, we look at everything. Really, like, I think what I like the power of 3s. We have 24 hours in a day, so 8 hours is for sleep, 8 hours for work, and then 8 hours is for yourself or something like that, right? That's kind of how they kind of break it down: social activities, mental, or different things like that. But when you look at those things, like the things that last with you, like CNN, those acronyms, but then there's things like Amazon, or there's things like Facebook. So it's not always going to be relevant for there. But when he says that he has those 3 things, and like he does the 3 by 3, like the determination, and then the faith, and all those things. And I think to myself, what am I missing, and what in my life am I like not kind of filling? Because we talk about my favorite power of 3, and I would love to ask you this too, is like, is mental, spiritual, and physical. Right? Those are the 3, my favorite power of 3s, because if I can fill all 3 of those buckets, then they're amazing. And when I look at content too, Dan, I look at, when I'm making content myself, I look for the hook. So that's one of the things. And then I look for the story, and then basically kind of give my reward the audience, right? I know you kind of talk about, was it hook, something and
Story offer.
reward. Yes, there we go. Hook, story, and offer, right? For when we're looking at logistics and like that. So coming back to where content is key, just understand, like, even if you start making content, like, start with a strategy. Like, pick 3 topics, pick 3 topics that you're really, really good at, and kind of branch out from there. Because when we kind of, you'll find your number, and this is not definite or absolute by any means at all. But I just think, hey, when we kind of make it simple, it just has so much power in that, and that's what I really enjoyed about this video.
The power of 3, keeping it simple. Like, hook, what's the little story, and what's the call to action? You can pretty much create any content you ever want in a very simple way by writing a sentence for each. That's your content, right? 2 sentences for each, maybe 1 sentence for the hook, two sentences for, the story, and then the call to action. And I think a call to action can be anything, subscribe. Like, what's the offer? Subscribe to my channel, send me an email, let's book a call. All of there's hundreds of different offers we can give at the end. It doesn't have to be buy my stuff when they don't even know you. It could be, hey, subscribe to my channel to get more content. That's an offer. Why don't you come to see me a little more? And then we can develop, like the first video said, develop those touch points based on the hours that you watch. Right? They really go together.
They really do. And I think, even coming back to your clip, what I love that, when you're talking about, like, content is king for a reason, and you look at those hours. So there's science behind this. And what we're trying to advise everybody, especially when it comes to content is king, and what we're realizing, like Dan prefaced this yesterday, saying that, we're not where we want to be. So we're not like the professionals in this, but there's a reason why we're having this discussion, so we can bring in people, have these discussions, go with things like that. But, try things. Go ahead and try things, even if it's you want to make 1 clip, or like do it in your content as well. And when I look at content, Dan, too, I look at content not just as video. Everybody thinks it's like video or like doing a podcast and things like that. I look at content as like your email structure. Like, how are you sending your email, your subject line as a hook? How you relating your emails back. Like, I've said this a million times. Don't be that person who copy and pastes their introduction package and pops in an email. We have trucks here. My name is blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. So what I kind of look at for myself, I kind of do a 3x3, another power of 3 in my emails itself. And that's with the help of Lavender that we talked about last week. But sorry, just to get back to it, it's like what I look for my content is like that personalized content as well. So whether it be my phone calls, that's content as well, because I'm going to pick those stories and those role playing, and then understand the customer avatars that I really, really want myself. So for me, just understand, everybody, that content itself, it's a way to make yourself known, as with Dan's video, to get somebody to really know you without even having a conversation, right? Because, like, Dan, we look at you. You had what was it? Every Little Morning Conversations, or I believe it was, and you started out with authors. And then when people type in Dan Deigan, they'll be like, okay, cool, I can listen to all his content. And then we get on the call, you're like, oh my God, I know so much more about you. So I think with everybody out there, you work in the power of 3s. You look at being content as being a king itself, so that you can just add another notch to your buckle, because those who don't adapt, they get left behind. That in certain companies, logistics companies, they've got the guys who've been selling for 20, 30 years, 40 years, stuff like that. Leave those guys alone. Those guys are stubborn. They know that they still smoke cigars and close deals on golf courses, and it works for them. But anybody who, I would definitely say, within less than 5 years within our industry, you got to adapt. If COVID hasn't if COVID hasn't taught you that, then I'm not sure what really is.
It's that's an interesting topic, because when I first got into this, I often said every salesperson needs a website, like their own personal website. Now, obviously, that could be your LinkedIn channel, or your Instagram page, or your Facebook business page, like whatever that case may be. But Ryan, I can't tell you how many times I've walked into companies for a first meeting, gone and went back for a second meeting, and almost got the business instantly because of what they saw of me online. No joke. And that is such a key piece of today's business, because when you produce content, people realize, and I think I've said this for years now, be something other than just a salesperson. Because if you're just a salesperson, you have commission breath, and all the other person thinks is they're just trying to get in my wallet. Whereas if you have this content that adds real value to somebody's life, and it might not even be the traffic manager's life that you're trying to change. It might be another traffic manager, but this one that doesn't necessarily resonate, it knows you're trying to help somebody. So there's that always that perception of, okay, they're not just a salesperson. Like, this person is doing everything in their power to help this industry get better, or help people that are in the industry get better. And that matters to people. That matters. Like, any salesperson that shows up at your door, you're always a little apprehensive, right? And then if they break the ice properly and talk about things that you're challenged with, you're going to pay attention. And
Yes.
you're probably going to give them at least a minute, maybe two. You're not just going to
Yes.
say, no, thank you, give me the brochure, and close the door.
Yep.
So this is what content is, that you can put out daily, 3 times a week, once a week, and somebody is going to find that. Because again, they will search your name 1000%. If it's not right before they meet you, it's after, and they say, am I going to do business with this person? Who am I getting into bed with?
And who is this person from there? And Dan, you bring up such a great point. So yesterday, if anybody was watching, I left towards the end of the episode because my doorbell rang. And when my doorbell rang, it was a gentleman outside, and it was the same thing that you said, man. I was ready to be like, no, I'm ready with Bell, because that's the one, the telecom companies. But he's like, look, I'm from Remax, I'm a real estate agent. We just opened up an office, and I did see the office because we have a plaza right next to us. And he's like, look, just want to let you know, we're right there. If you guys need anything, here's a brochure. Here's a free pen. Have an amazing day. He didn't ask for the sell. He was just kind of doing that introduction and that hook. And I'm not gonna lie, after the fact, I was like, maybe, we're not gonna be selling our house, and we already have our real estate agents. We have our go-to people that we've built trust with. Like, I would say 20 to 30 hours of trust already with. But it's good to know that, right? He didn't ask like,
Yeah.
hey. And like, I've had real estate agents come to my house before and be like, hey, we literally just sold the one across the street for over asking, are you interested? And I'm like, this is buying a house, for everybody out there. Buying a house is probably like the biggest, it's the biggest decision you're ever going to make in your life. It's the most costliest one that you're going to have, unless you're like really rich and buying like mansions, stuff like that. So to ask somebody such a loaded question like that, it might work for some, but it might not work for others. It didn't work for me, but that person in that literally that like 1 minute of like conversation really just like kind of brought down my barriers. And I was a little bit upset too, because like I'm leaving the show and things like that. So I'm like, I really left for this. But then he kind of like backed it up, and like I said, I put the pen on here and I told my wife about it. Not like it just kind of builds a little bit of guarantee from there. But Dan, when you're kind of talking about what the customer looks like, whatever you do it, like whatever content you're looking at, whether it be a text post or whether it be audio post or whatever, your customers really are looking up to you. And I only know this for a fact, Dan, is that this was 2016. I was working part-time at the mall, Carter's Oshkosh, and the manager, like when I went in for the interview, like she hired me, all that stuff, everything went well. I thought it was one of the most easiest interviews I've ever done. I started all that stuff, and I think like month 2 or 3 into it, she's like, hey, I really like that post like you made on Facebook. And it was just one of my profile pictures with me like being young and stuff like that. And then we started talking and going down that rabbit hole. And then she mentioned, before the interview, before she even interviewed or even looked at my resume, she's like, she looked at the name, she popped it in Facebook to kind of build that character. She's like, well, you post about God, you're about family, you seem like a good person, so I'm at least going to bring you in for the interview and see if that matches up, right? So yeah, everybody make sure of your image, man. Like, there's another part of it too, like, hey, if you want to get drunk every weekend and do all those things, just like make your account like private or something like that, like just because people are really going to look you up. And I'm getting that right now with my own show and things like that, Legit Smug Show. I'm getting people like reaching out to me and be like, hey, I really like your episode. I'm like, I've never talked to you in my life, like I don't know who you are, right? But like I'm seeing that, like just the impact that you can have with just posting content out there. You just never know.
Yep, you don't. And Ryan, going back to the real estate agent thing, for quite a time there, the pitch real estate agents were giving was, I'm going to get you over asking. And those who want the money, it resonates with them. It's right where their mindset is. Do you notice not once they said, however, when you buy your next home, you're probably going to have to pay over asking, right? So we look at the pitch, and that's my wife and I have talked about it many times because we saw our neighbor sell for way over asking, a person down the road sell for way over asking, and we're like, damn, if they're getting that, we can, like, what do you think? And it's like, okay, but where are we going to go? And you see, the people that accept the, oh my God, I'm going to get over asking, I'm in, let's go. And then when they go to buy the house, they realize that they lose so many homes because they're in these bidding wars. And the authentic real estate agent, probably that would have resonated with you better because you're a realistic person. You understand the market. They don't know how much of the market you understand, would say to you, hey, Brian, we just sold this house down here for over asking. So we got them, X amount over asking. And you might be thinking you're going to spend that on a new place, but I've got a series of houses in this kind of style. Does that interest you? That there's no bidding wars on. Yeah. Would that interest you? See, now that real estate agent will get way more business because he's tapping into, one, the people that want the more money, but two, the people that know they're going to have to pay more, and he's coming into the conversation right where their head's at. Sure, if I sell this for over asking, I'm going to pay over asking. So you see what I'm saying? So his content, if you will, by stepping up to the door, or his social post is, hey, here's what we've done. Not only here's what we've done, here's a list of locations where there's probably going to be no bidding wars, and I might be able to get you that added bump minus 20%. Right? Like that's a post that's going to resonate with so many more people. Right? That's a hook right there. Because you're like, well, I get 100 grand over asking and I pay 20 grand over. I'm actually putting, 60 grand in my pocket after commission and real estate fees and all that, an extra 60 grand. Do you know what I mean? That's where the real hook comes in.
Yep, hook, and that's the one thing, there's amazing real estate agents out there. Shout out to our own real estate agent who does the same exact thing. Like he showed, there was one time that we were kind of like interested, and he showed us a house, and before we even stepped in, he's like, look, love you guys, like he knows my wife and I really well for a long time. He's like, look, this is me normally with you guys, but once we walk into it, you're gonna see real estate. His name is Vic. You're gonna see real estate Vic, and he just went into work, and both my wife and I were just astonished at like the way that he's a true professional. He's the person that I want to work with because I understand that he takes this very seriously. And it's the same thing that you're saying, Dan. It's like and you talk about that too, like that over asking stuff. That's such a marketing ploy as well, because like he's educated me on the fact that real estate agents, to get that, they'll list the house not at market value, right, and then inflate the numbers, and when it gets the actual number that it's supposed to be, then it's like, oh yeah, over asking over 100K, but it's just like you underlist it there. But there's integrity in that, right? And I understand that where it comes with everybody, but I think the one things that my takeaway that I kind of taken from today is like, like understand what the power of three is I'm kind of looking at, and really understand like how many hours am I spending with each prospect. And I think that's my in the now moment that I'm gonna work on, Dan. Like, how many hours am I truly spending with my prospects?
Yep, I agree with that. I think that's those are two very, very good points for today's show.
I love it, man. I love it.